You're listening to the Practical Wealth Show with Curtis May, putting you in the driver's seat to control your finances. Let's start the Practical Wealth Talk about alternatives to Wall Street.
All right, welcome to the Practical Wealth Podcast. And today we have a special guest. I have our podcast production manager, Spencer Shaw, on the line with me as we what we want to do is just talk about, prosperity economics, privatized banking. What is that? And kind of, let you know, I want to introduce this, to our audience. Spencer, say hi to the folks.
Hey, thrilled to be here with you today.
Thrilled to have you.
So what we wanted to do today as your production manager, we've been going through the podcast and we've recorded episodes. But one of the things that people keep on asking is, what is Curtis's take on prosperity and why is this podcast different? So let's just first hear your foundation of starting out of people don't know who you are, and why you're talking about practical wealth and prosperity.
Okay. So long story short, I was traditionally in the industry, the regular way teaching, and one of my mentors is Kim Butler, teaching what we call typical advice, because I always tell people there's two schools of thought in personal finance, buy and hold, dollar cost average, get out of debt, buy term investor difference. And that's what, I was into. And what happened was, which really started, I read a little book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which started to get me, and through that I was introduced to Kim Butler, which planted the seed. And then I lived through 9/11 and watched, I was, doing retirement plans for the teachers, and I saw this woman's, I inherited her, and this guy had her in all kinds of unsuitable stuff, and she had 200 grand, and I watched it in 2 months drop to 250 before I could move it into other stuff. So I went into a meeting with the wholesaler from a big company. If I said it, you would know who it was, big TV ads, and I told him the story. He goes, well, the market's going to, don't worry, the market's going to come back. And, same old pat line. And here we go. I'm like, did I mention she was 68? And I started to lose my religion, as they say, as thinking, equities were the end all be all. So fast forward, I started to search for different ways. And I just came across this book by Nass called Becoming Your Own Banker. And I didn't get it, but it made sense. It still took me a little while to sort it out. And then I realized, wow, this is better. It's a way to, take control of your personal economy. And then, we started doing it, and I found that, all right, here's a way to, most people give most of your money away, right? So 35 cents of every dollar leaves most people's personal economy in the form of debt. But most people are trying to find better investments that pay a higher rate of return, but there's more opportunity in minimizing your losses than there is trying to pick winning investments. So the foundation of what we teach is efficiency of money, right? Benjamin Franklin said a penny saved is a penny earned. So what you want to do, if you've got a bucket and it's got leaks in it, before you turn up the volume, you need to plug the holes. So what I learned is to help people plug the holes, the leaks in their personal economy. And then now what happens is, once you're efficient, now you can begin on growing. And even if you don't turn up the volume of the water, your bucket will still fill up. And so I found that helping our clients, we found that two things. Most wealth is lost by how people manage cash flow, or don't manage cash flow, will be more accurate. And two is they give most of their money away through wealth transfers. There's 15 or 20 of them, but the top 5 are how people pay their mortgage, taxes, how they fund qualified plans or retirement plans, 401ks, IRAs, those type of things, how they pay for kids' education, and how they pay for what we call major capital purchases or big ticket items. And so there's more money lost in how people deal with that stuff than they'll ever make trying to pick winning investments. And so really, as I started to understand that banks and financial institutions and wealthy people, not only do they think differently, they handle money 180 degrees differently. But those strategies work in middle America. They're safer, you have more control. And honestly, I'm pissed that I have been in the industry, 20 plus years. I'm just finding out about some of this stuff like 6 or 7 years ago. So I'm upset because I'm making up for lost time of stuff I didn't know. And I have a mission to, get this message across to people I know. If I don't tell them about it, they will never hear it. And this is life-changing, and I hear this from my clients, information. Where were you 10 years ago? Where were you 20 years ago? Well, I tell them, listen, the African proverb says, best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago or today. So I'm here now. So let's get to work.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, you, if our audience doesn't know, you actually live in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
So, you're amidst...
From Philly. Yes.
So you're amidst people that are normal working, it could be white collar or blue collar workers. So is this whole prosperity thing only for people that live in, Manhattan or someone that lives in LA, or is it actually applicable to anyone?
It's really applicable to anyone. And that's kind of the message, my message, because I shouldn't say it. I'll take people with, that are already rich, but in my mind, rich people are going to be okay. Whether they see me or not, they got everybody chasing after them. Prosperity or moving people up, what I call the prosperity ladder, is really where I think that I can help people. That's where I get tremendous satisfaction from. So if I can look at you now, and in 3 years from now, we've moved you along so that your debt is down, that your net worth increased, although I'm not really as big on net worth as most people, and your passive income increased. So I meet you today, Spencer, and 3 years from now, or even 12 to 24 months from now, are you better off for having met me? 5 years from now, are you in control? Is your peace of mind higher? Are you feeling more in control of your life? Are you more knowledgeable? I can have a bigger impact on, regular folks, regular people, making, household income 50,000 and up, and and with inflation, that's not a lot of money, but they're still giving a lot of money in. And so generally the way we work, we help people find, we say what we do is different. We find the money. I help people find anywhere $200, $300, $500, as high as $800, as high as $1,700 a month, where we're able to create new cash flow that we can begin to help them begin to save, 10 to 20% of their income. So really, I teach, if anybody's read The Richest Man in Babylon, all I'm doing is teaching chapter 2 of The Richest Man in Babylon, the 7 cures for a lean purse, or in today's language, Spencer, 7 cures for an empty bank account, right? And it's basic. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you work at McDonald's. The principles work. That's what prosperity economics is about. It's about principles. It's not about products. It's about, Jim. I'm a big fan of Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn says, most people don't have a money problem. They have a philosophy problem. And so we want to work on your head and work on your philosophy. Rule number 1, first rule of wealth, you got to pay yourself first. You have to save money. You have first. So this is the prosperity ladder is first you have to work, right? So you've got to move from poverty to subsistence. You have to work and you have to save, right? And then you can go from subsistence to comfort, possibly. But, and that's where most typical financial advice is designed to get you to comfort. But if you have a couple of major things, you could fall back into subsistence, and it's easy. And if you're making $100,000 to $200,000 a year, to fall from subsistence, if you spend everything you make, back to poverty with a layoff or a major illness. And so what you want to do is be able to move to prosperity, meaning or financial independence, meaning that you can live like you want to live from the income from your personally invested assets. That's what I talk about. I don't care about really net worth. I care about you having passive income. I don't care about retirement. Retirement is an agricultural term that means to put out of use or to withdraw, right? And so what you want to be able to do is to do what you want to do instead of what you have to, which is a function of cash flow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. Now, when you help someone out and you're talking with them, how long does it typically take for them to, one, understand that it's not about having that $1,000,000 in the bank account? Like, how long does that typically take for someone to say, "Oh, I get it. I'm on board for prosperity"?
That's a good question. Well, I consider myself a financial educator. So to me, that's the work. But one of the things I give people homework. So there are certain things, there's certain books that I require people to read as they're coming through our process that if you don't do your homework, you can't work with me. I will not let you work with me because it's I tell people, look, it's your money. It's not Curtis's money. So it can't be more important to me than it is to you. So I want to educate you because, see, as your knowledge goes up, your anxiety comes down because you are more knowledgeable and you have more choices. So, we take people, we have probably a 2 or 3 step meeting process once we see if we're a good fit to engage. But I try to give people through videos, through reports, through either my videos or somebody else's or books to kind of educate them. So by the time we touch base, you kind of have a pretty good idea of what we do. Or if we engage, I will send you some homework to watch. So you have a pretty good idea. So you're at least starting to understand what prosperity economics is about. And you can see whether or not that's something that, would make sense for you to consider. So I don't, it's their decision. And I err on the side of too much information and not enough.
Oh, that makes sense. So as a listener, we actually have to do some work and understand the philosophy or the principles of it, not just put some blind trust in you.
Yes, I hate that. Don't put blind trust. I'm a good guy, but it's that makes me nervous actually. Oh, Curtis, you're fine. I'll do it because you say do it. I just help the client with that. I said, listen, let's review this again because don't do stuff because I said do it. I want you to know, let's ask hard questions. Let's kick the tires, because one of the things that we do also is we talk to people about, alternative investments. So are there non-correlated with, with Wall Street? So I'm kind of like the anti-Wall Street financial advisor, and we do insurance-based financial advisory, with our banking system, showing people how to use permanent insurance as a place to store their cash.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that maybe for some of us that aren't in the financial world, we kind of want to understand, what does that mean when you say alternative to Wall Street? Does that mean that like we're putting money in a different type of bank account, or is that using a total different paradigm? What is it?
Yeah, so it's a completely different paradigm. So we say non-correlated. That means that So let's back up. So when I say investment, I was funny. I was at Barnes and Noble and I looked at Benjamin Graham has a book called The Intelligent Investor, and I had heard this and I had been quoting this. I said, let me just look in here and make sure that he actually says this. And in the book he says, and this is Warren Buffett's mentor, right? He says investment is something that you put your money into where your principal is safe, right? So Spencer, if you put in 25 grand, how much are you supposed to get back?
Well, at least the 25 grand.
At least the 25 grand, right? And you have a reasonable opportunity to make a profit. That's an investment. See, and so he says anything other than that is speculation or gambling. So what most people are taught to do, if you hold that up to what most people are doing with mutual funds with their 401k, I say, look, I'm not going to tell you, but are you speculating or are you gambling? Does that fit that definition? So I never, I ask questions. So if I always answer a question with a question because I want you to own the answer, right? And so now what happens is, so we say non-correlated, so we like real things. So there's a book that we give away on our site called Financial Planning Has Failed. And so in that book, we talk about bridge loans, for example. So you can, so first you have to do is you have to save money, right? So the only thing you can do, the only four things you can do with savings. You can save your savings, you can uh, consume your savings or spend it, you can lend your savings, or you can invest your savings. So we talk to people about, there's four asset classes when you talk about investing. There's business, there's real estate, there's paper, and there's commodities, gold, silver. You can invest in oil wells. Those are commodities, right? And so if you begin to think macroeconomically, you start seeing, when I draw it out for people, I draw a little baseball diamond with business at the top, because if you look at the Forbes 400, most people that are on that list, they build businesses and they buy real estate. They don't get there by maxing out their 401k. So I tell people success leaves clues, right? So as you look at that, so if you're saying, well, where do you want to be? So that dictates what you do. So for some people, if like I work with a lot of business owner clients, so an investment could be putting money into a marketing campaign, a Facebook campaign, or something that that because you understand your business, you understand how to get growth out of your business. So to me, I'd rather have you put $300 a month in that than put it in some fund somewhere and hope some fund manager 1,000 miles away is smarter than you are and hope the money goes up after 20 years. To me, that's not good stewardship, right? And then, they buy real estate that generates cash flow. Their business generates cash flow. We talk to people about things like bridge loans, for example, and where you can loan money and basically be a private lender secured by a first position mortgage where you're getting bad interest rate, 6, 7, 8%. You get a check every month or every quarter, and then at the end of 12 months, sometimes 24, you get all your money back, and you've been getting interest payments. So there's just no such thing as a no risk investments, but you can do things to mitigate your risk as near zero as you can. And there's a lot of things that, other groups do and institutions do with their money that the regular middle America could do that they just don't know they exist, and they're safer. And so these things, and so what happens is if some bomb goes off somewhere in London, for example, and markets go down, non-correlated means it wouldn't affect my monthly interest checks coming in. So it's non-correlated with things that, somebody's opinion or somebody having a bad day could mess up your money, and so what you want to do is you want to diversify amongst asset classes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. So not diversifying on different kinds of stocks, but actual different types of assets, be it real estate,
Yes.
loans, or other things.
Because different stocks are that's all in the asset class called paper, right? And so the problem with that is, and so paper is bridge loans. Paper is there's something called life settlements, which is older than the mutual fund industry, believe it or not, and which is where you're all of it's a variation of buying money at a discount. You can get some things that are for growth, and we talk to low to mid double digits, some things where you can get income. So it really depends on what you need. A lot of times we help people, we call jailbreak their IRAs, and we help them create, self-directed IRAs. If you already have a lot of capital in there, you can begin to deploy some of your capital into these assets. What I teach people and what part of it is about is you got to save. So the first chapter in The Richest Man in Babylon is part of all you earn is yours to keep, right? And so what you want to be able to do is, we want people saving 10 to 20% of their income in various places. But one of the major strategies that we teach is, we call it the private reserve strategy, where you can put money into an entity. We use, permanent insurance. We're going to do a webinar on that. We'll probably put in the show notes as a strategy to kind of be able to put your money, because we talk about banking, drives compliance people crazy, but basically all banking is creating a pool of capital that you control that can move at cost to meet some need you have, a major capital purchase, a opportunity. So you have to save money so that opportunities present themselves. We played. We had about 12 people together playing cash flow. Got a bunch of teenagers together the other day, and as a recording of this, like a Friday night. So we had all these teenagers, and one of the things is they realize cash flow game makes you do your financial statements, and so you have to save money. And so when you pull the opportunity cards, you don't have any savings, you don't have any money to do the down payment or buy the stock or buy the opportunities that help you, progress and get out the rat race. So one of the things that I'm starting to have families do, we're going to have our families talk to them about creating game night, wealth night, where at least once a month you play the game with your teenage kids, with your friends and family, and teach yourself how to begin to think differently, which is the key. So it depends on what you're trying to do, because people say, well, what should I be doing? What's a good thing to invest in? And my answer always is, it depends. I mean, I don't know. I don't know you. What are you trying to do? Where is it? How much savings you got? A lot of times, if they don't have enough liquidity, I said nothing. You're not ready. Keep saving. Do you have 3 months, 6 months, 12 months of emergency capital set aside? After about 3 months, 4, maybe 6 months is an emergency fund. Then it becomes an opportunity fund. Because you need to have some money to do good investments. People call me and say, well, what do you think about blah, blah, blah? What do you think about, what was it, Snapchat? I don't know. What do you think about Snapchat? Why? How does that help you hit your goals?
That totally makes sense. So when a person's thinking of taking that extra money that they have and they want to turn it into something, can you talk a little bit about alternatives? Because I know a lot of listeners have mentioned they have 401ks, or maybe they got burned in real estate during the 2008 collapse. How can you help guide someone when they've maybe been burnt in the past and they don't want to go through that again?
Right. So that's a good question. So we use operating system. We call them money for life plans. So one, I try to give people an operating system of, like you have Windows, the operating system for PC. You need to have a money operating system. So we have a system for helping people manage cash flow so they can begin to pay themselves first. And then the money for life formula we say is earn it, bank it, borrow it, spend it, and repay it, right? So that's your baseline operating system. So earn it. How can you increase your ability to earn, minimize your taxation so you can improve your cash flow? Or if you're in business, what are you doing so you can control your cash flow? Bank it means save 10 to 20% of your income, right? And so a lot of people, so we take people through a 5-step process, which we say, look, you want to have emergency fund, what I call ATM money. So I want people to have some money in the bank, right? I want them to have, and then I want to make sure they're protected. Most people are underinsured, and we want to make sure that we make sure they have, I tell people in life, you're going to have 1 of 3 problems. You're going to live too long, you're going to die too soon, you're going to get sick. And you're going to get sick and live. So you have to play defense first, right? You want to eliminate your non-preferred debt, credit card debt, debt that you pay for that's costing you money. That's a transfer. Then you want to build cash reserves, right? So for that strategy, we use the private reserve or the privatized banking strategy. Now, what I teach is save from income and invest from assets, right? So from your savings, you have to look for things that you understand that makes sense to you in the 4 asset classes. Is it business? Is it real estate? Is it paper? Is it commodity? So for example, and I think I might have talked about this in another podcast, but I have a young client, young millennial, 29 years old now. So 2 or 3 years ago, I had him savings, right? He was making money, so earn it, bank it. So I had him banking $500 a month, right? And so he was looking at researching different opportunities. So he stumbled upon how to buy ATM machines, for example. Okay, one of my favorite stories, right? And so what I guess he took a course, he figured out how to buy it, and then said, Curtis, listen, I just got an ATM machine. I was like, what? how do you do that? And, they only cost a couple $1,000, right? And so he ended up, he borrowed it. He had to do the installation. He had to put some money in it, a couple $1,000. And then he would just recycle that money. Next thing I know, he had 3. As of this recording, he has 8, okay? Averaging $450 a month per machine in fees. Right? And so they cost $2,000. So if you earn $200 a month, you've got your money. What's the ROI on that? Right? That's, pretty good. And so on a smaller investment, but now he's generated serious monthly cash flow, but it started out with savings, so that when the opportunity presented itself to him, he had the knowledge and he had the capital to move forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So knowledge and capital creates opportunity.
Right. So the best thing to invest in is being in between your 2 ears, because you're really the creator of your wealth. And then what happens is, depending on how much you got, sometimes, because see, what you want to do is, we teach that you want to buy assets that send you a check every month. See, we're taught to buy things, put them in a box where you can't touch it, and hold it for 20, 30 years. And, hope somehow I call it the greater fool theory, right? You buying some stuff at $20 a share, and you hope when you retire it's at $50 a share, and some fool will buy it from you so you can liquidate your money and, live off that at retirement, And so that don't even sound right when you say it out loud. Hope is not a good strategy last time I checked.
Definitely it's not. No, it's kind of funny that we, as a society that has a lot of information, and we take the time to listen to podcasts and get educated, we're hungry for more. So as us listeners, if we want to learn more about practical wealth and about prosperity, what can we do? Like, what's our next step?
Well, I have so a good next step is a little book that I use to educate people. Well, it's a couple books. I'm a big on read this, watch this. But my starter book is Richest Man in Babylon, just to get your thinking right. And then easing into what we teach is Financial Planning Has Failed, which is on our website, practicalwealthadvisor.com. You can download it for free and get yourself educated. There'll be a site, practicalwealthshow.com, and we'll put to links to some of the resources that we use to educate people on the site, and in the show notes, where you can go in and educate yourself. And then at some point you might want to have a conversation, and I try to give people 15, 20 minutes or so just to ask me whatever questions they want to have, and then see if you're ready to talk. If not, I'll give you some more homework to help you solve your problem. Maybe you need to get out of debt first, And so a lot of times people are at, most of my work comes in, whereas, like I said, step 1 is emergency fund and protection, debt elimination. Step 3 is building cash reserves. People could be in the step 4 is investing in wealth building. So a lot of people I run into I might be in steps 1 through 3 for years, for a year or 2 or 3, just to get people what I call on top of the horse. So that's developing good habits, saving, and educating yourself. So, Rome wasn't built in a day. And so what you have to be able to do is develop the good habits. And then what will happen is your efforts will start to compound, because you'll get smarter, and, and you'll have the capital to pull the trigger, but you'll know more. And so there's no such thing as bad investments. There's bad investors. Because if you're a good investor, you'll know it's a bad investment. You won't take people's word for it. You know how to do your numbers. The numbers tell the story.
It feels good that you're actually in this for the long haul, and you're doing this to help normal people. We hear things that are helping people that have a ton of money, or we could listen to Dave Ramsey type of stuff. And I'm not saying it's bad, but to me, this just resonates. It's getting money to work for me in a way that I understand instead of having to blindly follow someone. So as the executive producer of this podcast, I want to just give everyone a shout out to go to the practicalwealthshow.com. Go to Practical Wealth Show and look at the valuable resources. Is there any other final tips or things that you'd like to share with the audience?
I think that you need to, a mentor one time told me a change of viewpoint can change your life. So you need to invest in education and work on your vision, and decide that. One of my favorite quotes from The Richest Man in Babylon, he says that, and I told a pastor this one time, you build a community from the bottom up, one family at a time. You can't control the economy, but what you can control is your personal economy, which is your production and consumption as a household. So you can control that. So I don't care if you work a job, I don't care if you're in business. Once that money hits your checking account, it is your job to become a good steward of your money. It's your job to teach your kids to become good stewards of the money and build, says in the Bible, a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And so, one of the things, and I tell people, you begin with the end in mind. I think I'll close with this. The 4 pillars. One of my favorite books on this is, and we use it as our textbook, is a book called Money for Life by Jeffrey Reeves. And the 4 pillars of a strong personal economy are, and this is what we're working for with people, is freedom from debt to others. If you're going to be in debt, be your own bank and owe it to yourself. I want you to have ready cash when you need it for emergencies and, more importantly, for opportunities. We want you to develop passive income that you don't have to work for and that you can outlive. And number 4, which should really be number 1, is, and it really is number 1, is building a legacy of wealth and wisdom. Right? And wealth is not just money. Wealth is your human capital. Wealth are the charities that are important to you. Wealth are the family traditions that you pass down. It's all that stuff, and how are you preserving that? And that's what's important. It's not, wealth is not just about money. It's about, living wealthy and, living the best life you can right now. And that's really what we're all about.
That truly is a wealthy life. Being able to share it with the people around you and not being stressed out. That's wealth. So I want to thank you as an executive producer. I love listening to the show, and by the comments and the critique and feedback from everyone else, I know that this show is something that people can really resonate with. So thanks so much for taking the time to have this conversation with me and your listeners today.
That's awesome. I look forward, and so keep your ears out for our next show.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Practical Wealth. To access the show notes and resources, go to practicalwealthshow.com. To get your questions on the show, go to practicalwealthshow.com. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before you make any investment decisions, consult a professional. This show is copyrighted by Practical Wealth. Written permission must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.